Hello, hello. Welcome to the Get At Gaming Plus podcast. This is a special review podcast that you are only seeing on YouTube unless we decide to post it on Spotify or any of our podcast services. Um, I am Alex,
I'm Ben.
and then
I'm Brooke.
yes, we have Brooke. I didn't. We all messed this up, but it's totally fine. This is our first time having a guest on one of these reviews, and we're keeping it in. Yeah, this is Brooke, BulbieBrooke. We reached out to Brooke to be on this review because this is a cozy farming sim type game. So we thought that Brooke would be on board with this kind of game compared to other types of reviews. So this video here again, this is Get At Gaming Plus podcast review. You can find us generally on youtube.com/Get At Gaming. You can also find us on any podcast service, pretty much every podcast service. If you look on Amazon, Spotify, probably like everything. Yeah, Bullhorn, everything. Yeah, honestly, if you go find us, you'll find us there. But today we would like to talk about Everafter Falls. This is a new game that we got codes for. Thank you very much, Akupara Games, for providing us codes.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. This game is a indie cozy farm game that also has some action, like adventure style mechanics as well, a la like Zelda dungeons, like original Zelda dungeons, I would say. This game was published by Akupara Games and then created by Square Husky, developer there. And I believe that developer is even from like Australia or something as well. And yeah, so we'd like to talk about this game and just kind of our opinions. We do have a video up. If you want to go to YouTube right now, you can see our short video review. But for more in-depth discussions, we told you to go here, and here you are, hopefully. So yeah, this game is a cozy farming sim. You can farm, you can fish, forge, and fight to restore the peace in an all-new farming adventure. Yeah, this game just has a lot of different mechanics that it kind of throws at you, but I guess I want to go first or bring this up first. Initial reactions. What do you think about this game? Without going into too much detail, don't necessarily have to review it or like give it a review score just yet, but what do you think about this game? Brooke, do you want to go first, or?
Yeah, I'm happy to go first. Okay. Yeah, I have played my fair share of like farming sims with Stardew and Animal Crossing before. So there were, particularly with the opening cutscene, having reference to those games in sort of a tongue-in-cheek sort of it's like not reinventing the wheel, but it also has its own spin on things. It was I found that very funny. Some of the dialogue was quite funny in this game, but it was like immediately kind of quite cozy, and I was familiar with some aspects of it, and I could get right into playing the game. So I was, very happy to jump right in and found myself quite relaxed playing the game and enjoying myself straight away. So, my first impressions were very positive of the game, and I enjoyed myself quite a lot when I was recording for it.
Cool. Because I'm leading this review, I'm going to make Ben go next. Ben.
Of course, right? That's the way it usually works. A lot of what she said, like I really like that beginning part of it. I spent a lot of time playing Animal Crossing. More time than I probably would like to. Not as much as other games, but so getting this game and being able to play it like this really felt good. I love cozy games every now and then, and this definitely was there. The just like Brooke said, the tongue in cheek at the beginning and then making fun of the other games as they go into theirs was unexpected. I was not expecting any comedy really. Animal Crossing has their it's so cute like comedy, but this really had its other. So yeah, I loved that part beginning of the game. I mean, honestly, I thought that was a part, and just that vibe of you once you get going, you do what you want to do, which is great as well.
Yeah, definitely. I enjoyed this game a lot as well. There were some issues with it, and we'll dive deeper into that as we go. Um, I have played Animal Crossing. I have played older, like Harvest Moon 64, I would say. Um, Maybe the one for the GameCube as well, just a little bit. But I'm not really familiar with farming sims, at least newer types of farming sims, including like Stardew Valley. I own Stardew Valley. I've only
Mm.
played a tiny bit of it, and I couldn't get into it for some reason. I don't know if it was overwhelming initially or what have you, because it seems to be pretty open with Stardew Valley in the beginning. Whereas with this game, it was a little more linear, and a little more approachable in some aspects, but in a lot of other aspects, it's not approachable. And
Mm.
we will talk about that when we talk about that. Which I guess we can kind of go into that right now. So we'll talk about like the gameplay. So there's a few main aspects to the gameplay. The You can like do like fishing and like capturing animals like bugs, uh fish, shells, just a bunch of different types of things to give to a museum, similar to Animal Crossing, right? You also have farming stuff, so you can get seeds, you can plant things, you can do all of that and make items or use said food for nourishment, maybe like in a dungeon or whatever. And then I just said dungeon, but there's also the dungeon aspect, which is um, a dungeon crawling adventure where you go through a dungeon, and similar to like an old Zelda dungeon, except that it feels like it's just never ending for the most
Yeah.
part. It probably has an end, but I've only been in one dungeon, so I'm not too sure. I know there are other dungeons as well, though. But basically, there are enemies as well as materials in there, and then you just once you defeat all the enemies in a room, the doors open, and then you can see which rooms to go to next. And on your map, you can see like the branching points of like the two other rooms that are next, and you see if they have an entrance, like another exit with them. Or you can see if it's just like a lone room itself, or they'll have like an exclamation mark on there, and then you'll know like, oh, this is a special one, which means it's like one of those mini bosses or bigger boss fights
Mm.
that you can go through. Um, but yeah, let's. I guess I don't really want to go into pros and cons just yet, but a light overview again. What do you all think of the mechanics themselves, like the way that they work? Not necessarily did you understand them, did you not understand them? Were they good mechanics? We can go more in depth again later in our pros and cons, where we might talk about um, certain learning issues with things. But as
Mm.
far as the game actually running and doing things, were the mechanics good enough? Could they be better at the, or did they do the job, I guess is my question. And again, I guess I'm going to start with you again, Brooke. So what do you
Yeah,
think?
that's good. Yeah, I'll go off, some of the things that you've mentioned there. I'll also start with like the pet. That's one of the first things that you sort of get given and interact with, and in terms of gameplay. And I've like I said, have done a few farming sims, and you usually get like a watering can of some kind, and you start with being able to do one square at a time, and it's quite tedious, and you can usually upgrade and stuff like that. But having a pet and a companion to help you out was really sweet,
Mm-hmm.
and doing like multiple squares at a time and having a helper, I found that really endearing. And I made would you guess my pet was like two shades of green, and I called it bok choy because it looked like a looked like a bok choy. And
Mhm.
so it was just like a nice little companion that I had around that helped me do my farming, and I just found that really endearing. So that was a really enjoyable experience for me, and the function was really nice. It wasn't didn't make it like a tedious process for me. And then fishing, it was usually fishing in different games. Like it's generally a little bit different in the different farming sims, but this is a completely different type of fishing. Like what the sort of mini game actually is. And like every other game I've played, it was a little bit difficult at the start, but the more you practice it, it gets easier.
Yeah.
And so I found that accessible, and I learned how to do it. And the crafting, you have a lot of different crafting to do, and I think we'll probably all want to talk about the crafting in a bit more detail a little bit later. But you have a lot of recipes that you have in your crafting recipe section,
Mhm.
and a lot of things you can do with that. And then one point that you were talking about, Alex, with the dungeons and how it was very Zelda-like. That's the exact thought I had when I was in the dungeon and I saw them all branch off from each other and go into the next room and defeat the enemies and move into the next room. I immediately thought of Zelda. I'm a huge Zelda fan, so
Mhm.
it was it was very nostalgic for me to have that experience in there. And I really liked how you could sort of clear all the enemies, mine your ore, and
Mhm.
then sort of progress to the next section. And I really like Stardew Valley as well, but I find the mines very, very stressful. And I can get, I find the mines in Stardew Valley more stressful than Dark Souls. so, so it was nice to have like a mining experience in the dungeons here,
Mhm.
where I wasn't so stressed and I wasn't really worried about my health because even though I was getting attacked by enemies, it wasn't significant enough where I had to really worry about my health very much. So it
Speaking
was
of
worth it.
health, I guess I know Ben chose this one, but did you also choose the card that had your pet heal you?
Yes, I
Okay.
did. And I chose the ring that had the health.
Okay.
And I think that made a big difference.
Mhm.
I think if I hadn't had that ring, I think it might have, because I think it gave you like 60 extra health,
Mhm.
and I had like 90 health in total. So I think if you didn't have that, you might have struggled a lot more.
I think I only had like 30 health, honestly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I think the ring made me have a very safe
Mhm.
experience in the combat.
Because I got a
Yeah.
different ring. I want to say I got like a speed ring that had like movement
Okay.
speed. But yeah, I the card that I chose, like one of the initial cards that you get from Dog for picking up his cup. It was well, I actually wait. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember if it was then or not. But like I got one that was one the ghosts or whatever, like the time thing. I got one that was like um oh, they'll come for you an hour later now.
Mm,
So I had that, but then also, yeah, I got the one where it's like, oh yeah, you're after every 5 or 10 seconds, your pet's gonna heal you like 2 health or something
yeah,
each
me
time,
too.
and like it just made it a lot easier to where like I could like hide a bit. I could just leave the game on for a bit because I didn't really have healing items or anything in those dungeons. If
Yeah, I
anything, like I
struggled with that.
left and came back,
Mm.
um, but or just prayed and just kept on going and hopefully I wouldn't
Yeah.
run
Ran
into anything.
around for a little bit.
Yeah. Um but yeah, it kind of took over. But Ben, what are your initial like impressions of like the gameplay and again,
Yeah.
not to like bash on it yet, just like how did it work for you overall?
Well, I think for me, I'm gonna take a little bit about both of you guys said. So with what Brooke said about the pet and using the pet, I've not played Stardew Valley, but I've seen it played before. And that aspect of having your pet being able to do so many squares at a time, like 6 squares at a time, and then do the watering and stuff, made it enjoyable. And you had a pet, you know. Um, Also, love the fact of the pet would never get hurt in combat, which is even
Yes.
better for me
Mm, sure.
as a pet owner. But I think that element there, and then the Zelda part in the dungeons, I really got that as well. Being an old school gamer myself, um, just seeing that of like going the next next part of the dungeon and the board, them opening up after you defeated all the enemies, reminded me of like defeating enemies in Zelda and getting a key or something for the door. So that aspect there. One thing that you guys kind of well, you guys touched on was the fishing part. I liked the fishing part. a lot of like, so my aquarium is getting pretty full there in town. I really was enjoying that. I love the aspect of it was a little bit different than Animal Crossing, which I played a lot of uh, there. But I follow the same thing as what Brooke did. So I did get the ring for health as well. Um, you know, and that when we get into the pros and cons, there are obviously some things that I had some things I didn't like with, but overall that was very pleasing, and I felt like being a cozy game, it was great because you had the farming sim plus, hey, what do you need me to do for you in town? But then you also got that dungeon crawling part, which was equally as fun. But it wasn't like a big stress in other games. That was the other thing is like trying to be a cozy game, you can't have a lot of stress. You know, that's
Mm.
the whole point of it. And I felt that the dungeons were equally easier to go through because, yes, it would get really tight where you'd be like really, really low in health, right? And then you defeat that last enemy and just kind of run around for a minute and then you would gather, you know, health back. So that made it a little bit easier with that. So,
Mm.
Yeah, like even the curfew ghosts, I don't know what their actual name are. Like they weren't really all that scary either. Like it was still
right.
cozy even with
They
those
scared
dudes.
me.
Like they pop up out of nowhere. The first time I saw them, I was like, "Oh, what are these?" And I was just running away, and then
Yeah.
they captured me.
I think I'm just a scaredy
Yeah.
cat.
Well, there was one part of the gameplay I guess I'll touch on before we go in the next part is that I died in a dungeon, and the ghosts bring you like back home essentially
Mm,
if you
they
die.
Yeah.
do.
And there was one time where I died, and they're like, "You got to pay us 150 gold,"
Yeah,
and I
I
was
have to pay the
like,
ghosts.
"But I was like, I don't have any gold," and so they're like, "You can't go in the dungeon until you pay gold." So there was
Have
like
to
a
pay the
pink,
tax.
yeah, so there was a pink ghost or something in the front of the portal, and I had to wait until like I made enough money to go back in and be like, "Hey, here's the payment, dude. I'm sorry," and then he let me through.
What do they
Um,
need with that gold? That's a bit.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Right.
Buy more ghosts, I guess. I don't know. There's so many of them. Like
It's
there's
stingy.
yeah, but yeah, I remember that was a thing that was kind of annoying for that particular part, but at the same time um it didn't really hinder the cozy experience. Like once you got used to certain things, like you were kind of just like, "Oh, it's 8 o'clock or 7:30, and I'm in the I'm in the dungeon. I better go to the warp spot and warp out and go
Mm.
back to my house. I'll put in the logs into the fireplace, and then you get that extra sleep, and then you wake up at 6:30. Um, and so instead of like 8 or something is what you normally wake up at. It depends, but like yeah, I figured that out really quick because I like accidentally put in logs into the fireplace, and it was like you slept in, but you slept cozy enough to where you can wake up early. I was like, oh, okay. So then I just had more time for that. But yeah, this game definitely different for me, but it's definitely a treat. I'm saying definitely a lot. But let's go
Yeah,
into.
it's.
Yep, sorry, you can go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's something that it left me wanting to keep coming back for a play session.
Oh yeah,
All the
definitely.
gameplay all together. Like I
Yeah.
just wanted to keep playing it. So yeah, really,
Yes.
it started off really, really well.
Yes, definitely. Again, I said that a lot. Let's go into graphics and sound here. So I guess I'll go first actually with this. We'll switch it up a little bit. So with the graphics, I kind of touched on it in the video review, but the graphics are fine for me. Like I think the sprite work is fine. I think honestly the sea creatures and like the enemies are more of the highlight of the graphics, I would say. I think they do a lot of nice things with them, as well as like the bosses and stuff. I think they look really really nice, like bigger, like blown up PNGs of the the
Mm,
enemies, but like they look really good that way. They look
mm,
very retro that way, and they don't look bad in any way. I think that the other like villagers and the characters look fine as well. They're serviceable. I don't think they're very memorable in design. I'm this isn't a bash at it, but I feel like the game looks very mobile game, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's very simple, like not having joints on your characters, just being very generic. Eye person, no mouth or what have you. Just you're clearly just an empty slate to just put your character into, because it doesn't matter what you look like, right? You're playing the game, and so same thing with the characters. Like I don't think the characters are all that memorable looking, but they do their job. They look fine enough. They're not disgusting to look at, you know. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't playing this game. I was just like, oh man, this game looks bad or whatever. It doesn't. Like I think it looks fine. And same thing with again with some of the sprite work. Like I think some of the items and like the aquatic life and like the butterflies and all those kind of things, like the sprite work of the actual collectibles, I think are really detailed, and that kind of surprised me compared to like seeing the seeing the world and seeing your character and seeing the other characters, but then seeing these two conflicting art styles. I would personally have liked maybe them to go more into the pixel art thing, just because that's just the way that I am, instead of having these two different ways. But I think
Mm.
they work fine enough, because like I don't know, you get the best of both worlds, I guess. But
Yeah.
Mm.
yeah, I don't think again, I don't think anything is bad necessarily. It was just kind of weird how there are two different art styles there, but they both do the job. Um yeah, so I guess yeah, let's just talk about graphics first, because I feel like graphics and sound go hand in hand, but at the same time, I'll just have you each talk about graphics. So I guess Brooke, what do you think of the graphics of this game overall?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. In particular, I sort of identified there was like three different art style, or not maybe art styles. There was like two main art styles with the pixel and then the more, I guess, what you'd call like mobile game
Mm-hmm.
sort of style. It's like I don't know exactly what to call it, but it's it
Flash game.
like flash game. Yeah, okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Flash game. Thank you. Thanks for helping me.
Yeah.
But it looks slightly different on the character models versus in the backgrounds and the foregrounds
Yes.
and the areas. And I liked the backgrounds and the foregrounds a lot more in their style and the moving parts. So like how the trees move and stuff.
Yes.
I liked it on those things, but I felt like the characters were quite superimposed onto there, like a sticker.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it could have been a bit more um, like they could have been immersed a bit more to look more natural in the environment.
Yeah.
So I think that would have helped with it not looking so just like they've been plonked in there, and that would have like made it look a bit more immersive in the world. But I really liked the pixel portraits. Every time the pixel portraits came up, I loved looking at them. They're
Mm-hmm.
so cozy, and I love Stardew Valley as well. I love pixel games and all of that, so it might just be my personal bias.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like I'm saying they should change the whole game to pixel art. It's not that at all, but I really loved what they did with those portraits, so it would be nice to see more of that. But I still really liked the style of the characters. I just think that maybe the actual character models in the in game could maybe something about them could change a little bit to be a bit more immersive. But I also liked how the bosses were in the dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
I had the crab boss.
Yeah.
And how blown
Mhm.
up it was, and how it was like almost dancing towards me. It was so funny. It was great. It was really it was a really funny experience watching that go around the screen. So I really enjoyed the graphics. But yeah, I would have loved to see more of the pixel art. It was really nice.
Mm-hmm. Ben.
Um, yeah, I agree with both you guys. My first initial thought was like, it does have that, cell phone game type look to it, but it works really well for what it is.
Mm.
Especially like your character looking one way and then the other characters in the game looking another way, and then dungeon things looking different ways as well. but like the background and the scenery and stuff like that looks really, really well done. When it was raining and it was windy, you could see the grass moving and the trees moving and stuff like that. Um, so, or like running water, like there's a waterfall there. Just seeing that there, that to me looked absolutely fine. I think being a cozy game and being what kind of game it really was set out to be, I think that is what they wanted for, and they were shooting for. Hey, this is going to look like this and that. Kind of what Brooke said. I did feel like some of the characters look like stickers, but it wasn't a bad thing, you
Mm,
know. And
Mhm.
and so it looks fine to me. Um, you know, overall, I didn't have a problem with it. This is not the newest Final Fantasy. It's not God
mm,
of War, Ghost of Tsushima. This is what this is for this. This works, and I
mm.
I had no problem with it at all.
Yeah, definitely didn't take away from the experience at all.
Oh no, not at all.
No, and I could see for this game in particular, depending how well it does and stuff, because I believe this game was a Kickstarter game as well, if I remember looking at it correctly. Like a lot of these kind of games get like deluxe editions later on, so it is possible some of these things that we are talking about and not really complaining but more of critiquing, it's possible they might fix some of these either in an update or in an updated version of the game.
Mm,
Yeah,
So if they do, cool, because I agree with all of you with everything you said, and everything that I've said. I guess I agree with myself.
mm.
um but let's see. So the next thing that I want to talk about is sound, and there are good things and bad things to this. And I
Mm,
guess since this doesn't really fit in the pros and cons kind of go next. I kind of want to talk about the good and bad about sound right now. So the good things are like certain like atmospheric sounds or ambiance, other words, they sound fine to what it is. Like I did enjoy like when it is raining you're just hearing rain, like there's no music. Like I thought that was a really
mm,
nice touch. Really puts you in the perspective of, oh man, it's raining and it's not really that fun out today. But as I said in like the review and stuff earlier, like the review video, um there are really as far as I can tell. Now there could be more, but this is a preview, and we didn't have enough time to really like get through the whole game because it's a farming sim game. You know, they're meant to be played for a long time, so it is possible there might be more things that we are missing, and
sure.
so the so like there are only really three themes, like three music cues to the game. And so there's the main song that happens on the title screen, as well as just overall walking around music, you know. Like even if you go into different buildings and stuff, the music is all still the same, right?
yeah,
And
Mm,
then when you go into the dungeon, it's initially no music when you're at the portal. But then once you leave and you start seeing enemies and like the mining equipment and all that, the minerals there, then you start to hear the cave music, and like it sounds like a cave music, I guess I should say, or like a like old school like dungeon Zelda music again, but just a little more atmospheric. Um, and then finally there is the last song, which is like the boss theme, which is completely different, completely, I wouldn't say like tone deaf, but it's just way too different for what this game is, and I love it. Like I love
yeah.
that
it is
song.
it's such a bop. When it came on, I was just like dancing in my seat to it while fighting the boss, and then I remember I was fighting the boss and I was taking so much damage.
Yeah, and like I really wish that like we had more, like I wish they would focus on what types of music they had, like maybe more tracks. And again, maybe there are more tracks, I just don't
Yeah.
notice yet. Maybe there are more tracks,
Mm,
maybe each dungeon has their own track, I don't know. But what I do know is that yeah, that chiptune music for the boss is amazing, and I
mm,
just want to hear more songs like that because it reminds me of um I don't know, like old Game Boy music.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's more like me playing Pokemon trading card game. It's like that type of chips tune music compared to like playing regular Pokemon. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's cheery and like it makes you energetic, I guess. And so like yeah, I just really wish that we had more music like that. And then as far as like the other sounds and stuff go, I think the sounds are serviceable for like cutting down trees or getting items, getting fishing, all that stuff. Everything sounds as it should. Some characters sound a little bit different, a la like Animal Crossing or Celeste or any sort of game without actual speaking. You kind of hear like the text have its own voice depending on who you're talking to. And again, that's serviceable. I feel like a lot of games do that. I prefer that to nothing. So it was kind of nice to have something like that. But yeah, I was wondering what your guys' thoughts were. Whoever wants to go first, I guess. Free for all. Fight.
I mean,
Would you,
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I was gonna say, would you like to go first, Ben? Because I always
Oh,
go
thank you.
first.
So polite. I think for me, like you actually nailed it. You know, and I know people are gonna be like, well, there's only a couple songs. Super Mario Brothers literally had like 3 or 4 songs. They had the underground, they had the
Athletic
last,
theme.
yeah, and then they had, you know, the normal one in dungeons and stuff. So I think that was okay. I think it did really well. The boss, because when I fought the crab boss, I was like, okay, so this is more of my alley of the old school stuff that I grew up with. Um, you know, and if you grew up with NES, that's what you had, or Game Boy, that's what you had, was like very limited. I think it did well. I think the overall sounds for fishing and chopping down trees or doing anything was really fine to me. I think you know, you try not to compare it to things like Animal Crossing and stuff like that. Animal Crossing is a little more whimsical, a little more, um, you know, I think it's a little more cartoonish, I want to say almost. Where this one is like, you know, like when you pull fish out on Animal Crossing, they do the whole yippee thing and stuff like that. I liked how this was a little bit different from that in there. And so I thought the sounds and the music were perfectly fine for me. I had no problems whatsoever with it. Um, you know, and I didn't find myself like, oh God, here's this song again, you know, like over and over and over and over again. I thought it was all fine, you know. And I think in a game like this that's longer, my only fear, and it's not really a complaint, would be hopefully there is more music they want to release, because if you are playing this game like Stardew Valley, like our buddy Spencer, who has over 100 hours into it,
Multiple
that
consoles.
would, yeah, that would get really old after you hit
Hit
30,
me over
40
here
hours.
with like 180 hours in Stardew Valley.
Yeah. And so, like, for someone like you, if you're playing this game for hours and
Yeah.
hours and hours, after a while, it would get okay. So it's too much. But yeah, otherwise, for what I got to play with it, I didn't find that time at all. So
Yeah, I agree with what you've both said as well. And I guess what we've seen, like I didn't get through the summer season to right to the end, so there are other seasons to get to. So I assume there's different music for the different seasons, and it's hard to not compare it to other games. I mean, even with the opening cutscene, it brings up other games that are in the same genre, so it's hard not to compare. Stardew Valley has multiple tracks for the different seasons. So summer season will have multiple tracks. And I know this because I use the music in my videos, so I could see the different types of tracks. And it has so many different melodies in there that it and the tracks are quite long that it doesn't feel like it's just the one sort of song. But in saying that, I do agree with you, Ben, that I didn't feel like it was the same. It didn't come to my mind that it was the same song repeating all the time. Like that thought didn't pop in my mind as I was playing. Like I've noticed it sort of thinking about it in reflection, but when I'm playing, I'm not thinking, oh, it's this song again, sort of thing. And the sound effects are all great, like all the ambient rain and wind and everything is really good. I love the sound of specifically when you pull up the mushrooms, the
Yes.
yoink sound.
yeah,
You know what I'm talking about? Those little like yoink sounds, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
So there are definite like sound effects in there that like itch the right part of my brain, and have that like cozy game effect. So I think it would the life of the game would benefit from variety in the music tracks. But overall, a lot of it is really serviceable, and there are elements of it that I really do like. So yeah, sound is pretty good overall, I think.
Cool. Um, so we're running okay, I guess, on time for this. But next, I wrote pros and cons, but really I feel like we're already giving this a lot of pros. So I guess it's time for the cons, right? Time to throw this game against the wall and be like, all right, what's your problem? So I didn't mention this in this video, I guess, but you two played on computer. I played on my Nintendo Switch, OLED
Mm.
specifically. And so when playing on my OLED, because it's it's an OLED screen, it pops, the colors and everything is awesome. And then when I play on like the computer to like record and stuff, it still looks fine, but like I think the OLED really enhances the experience, just
Mhm.
because it already has like that bright and colorfulness to it. Um, but my problem with the Switch, and then I guess Ben had some sort of issues too with some of this stuff. Um, for me, Ben talked about like, oh yeah, it's cool seeing running water and stuff, and that is cool. But for me specifically, that particular part where, say, like you leave your house and like where the store is and like all that, and you go up and there's all the water and stuff, like that particular map, the game always chugs for me when I'm walking near
Okay.
water, and it's like frame ratey, like the frame rate's dipping up
Mm.
and down, and it's not super noticeable, but I just notice it, I guess, because I'm just more sensitive to that kind of stuff. And the game still runs fine, it's just that the running water effect, as well as the waterfall, because I think it's just because the running water, there's so much of it there, and then the other things are
Oh
moving
yeah.
too. I think that like the game is just chugging a bit, and
Mm.
once I get away from that screen, then it's fine. So it might just be a weird glitch with that screen, to be honest,
Mm.
or but
Mm.
who knows. But like I noticed that, and then also creating a world, as well as getting back into a save, creating a world took forever. I felt like it took a long time for me for like that game to run and like that progress bar to go through. The game's music chugged as well. Like it was like popping in and out when I was
Oh,
trying to create a
really?
world for the very first time.
Wow.
And like start a game. But then once I was doing save files and like opening up the save files, it was better. It still took a little bit. Like it maybe took, I don't know, like 40 seconds, I want to say. But I felt like it was different a little each time. But like I will say, once the game's open, you don't really see any of those like load screens. Their
Mm.
load screens don't really exist until like you sleep and save. And those load screens weren't bad at all. It was just really just the opening screens for me that had issues. But playing on Switch, I think this game was meant for Switch.
Oh yeah.
I think this game feels really, really good on Switch. I like, outside of this review as well, I plan on playing more of this just in my bed and stuff on Switch, because I
Mm.
think it's just cozy enough to just do that. I think I enjoy it more because it is on Switch. Now, if I play this on Steam, I think I still would enjoyed it well enough, but because the game is just one of those pick up and play and put it down stuff. I feel like the Nintendo Switch is, that's its bread and butter, So
Yeah.
I think that it just makes sense to get that on there. And I believe this is
Mm.
on other consoles and stuff as well, or it's going to be on other consoles as well. So um yeah, it's, I think with saying bad things about the game, I think that it's still like, the Switch is still a perfect place to play it. I have one other gripe, I guess, to talk about here, because they're just my two main points where there's bad performance in certain places. Um, but then also my main problem is, and Brooke kind of has the same issue, it seemed, was um well, I guess we all had these issues. There are issues with inventory management, for one. It was just really confusing. There are confusing parts about the game just expecting you to know how to play at certain points for 2. So like it was really hard with the inventory management to like look at your crafting and be like, okay, cool. I can craft this item thing to get these things. And so once you actually craft the thing, you have to like figure out if the item is sitting on the ground, like say like you build a furnace, right? You don't know what a furnace does unless you pick it up, and then it kind of gives you like an overview ish about it. But they really want you to use these information signs. They create blank signs and imprint these instructions, and I just think it's not really a good concept in my opinion. I think having
Yeah.
just a glossary would really, or some sort of encyclopedia to just explain like, cool, you unlock the furnace, now you just know you can go to this page here in your journal and it tells you furnace equals this, and you're like, cool, that's great. So yeah, I had issues with that. And then let's see, for me personally on Switch, another thing is that this game seemed to be built for PC. I don't know how all your experiences were with like keyboard and mouse or controller or what have you, but for inventory management, I really want to use a D-pad for menus and use the sticks to like move around. But the way that this game was programmed is that it was really just, hey, the stick is your only way of movement for menus and yourself. You cannot use the D-pad for anything else, and I don't know why that is. I think that's kind of a weird thing to forget about, but at the same time, I've seen other indie games also do this. Um, and so I just don't know why people forget about this, because I feel like I would enjoy this game a lot more if I could use the D-pad for more precision menu things instead of accidentally clicking on a different item because the chess item spot is so small and I accidentally reach over to the right a little bit more instead of just clicking right on my D-pad and it goes to the proper box.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were my cons. I guess Brooke, do you want to go next, since I kind of said that you had some of the same agreements as me?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I didn't have as much of the performance issues on PC, but I had similar, like starting the save file, it did take I noticed that it was taking a while, and I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, come on, like this is a good PC. Like you have power. Like this is like Stardew level of like computing power. Like what are you doing?
Yeah.
So getting started, and when you load in, like it takes longer than I expect it to take, but it's not a huge, it's not like the issue that you're having on the Switch. And the thing about it, like it does seem like it's made to be on a portable system like the Switch. So ideally it would be fantastic if that could be improved, because it would make the player experience so much better. It is the kind of game you want to sit in bed with. And I prefer playing games on my PC, but like if I could have it on my Switch and it performed well, like I'd be very tempted to have it there, because it's very cozy. So yeah, that would be really good to be improved. But yeah, the inventory and the using it, the controls in that, I used a controller. Actually, I used an Xbox controller with my playthrough. I play Stardew Valley with keyboard and mouse because I find it easier to have access to more buttons to manage what I'm doing.
Mhm.
But I started with a keyboard and mouse and then found that it was sort of, I can't remember exactly if it was the game pushing me towards controller, or if it was like Steam was saying, this is optimized for control. I can't remember if it was like an explicit push from
Okay.
the game or Steam, or if it was sort of more, I didn't like the keyboard and mouse. I can't exactly remember. I didn't make a note. But for some reason, I moved over to a controller.
Okay.
And so I moved over to a controller, which I wouldn't normally do for a game like this. And I did verify whether I could actually do some of the actions that I was struggling with a controller on keyboard, and I couldn't do them on a keyboard and mouse either. So what I say about what I can't do with a controller still applies for the controls on a keyboard and mouse.
Mhm.
But basically, with using it on the PC and accessing your inventory and everything, like using the left and right triggers to access your map and your crafting menu and things like that, having to like get down to your inventory to access your items was a real pain. And sorting through all of that was just it was just annoying, and it wasn't convenient. And every time I had a full inventory and I had to go and sort things, I found myself getting really not really frustrated, like just a little bit frustrated with that. Like it was not convenient. And particularly with the map as well. With the map, it was sorted by, you can see where the villages are and where
Yeah.
you are, or you can see where the different buildings are and different places. But there was no option that I could see or figure out with a controller or a keyboard and a mouse to just scan the map, which is what I wanted to do. I just wanted to scan the map and have a look, and you couldn't do that.
Yeah.
And so it was frustrating to try and find what I was looking for. And so, yeah, having a mouse probably would have been easier to navigate the map a little more by clicking on the icon instead of scrolling through them. But I did have D-pad access control, so that was easier in that regard. But it was just, it was the most complicated way of accessing inventory management that I've experienced in a game, for sure. I definitely think it could be workshopped a bit to make it easier and more enjoyable for the player experience, because I would always whenever I had a full inventory, I'd sort of sigh a little bit because I knew I'd have to go in there and fix everything up. I feel, and the information sign stuff. So there was a tutorial quest on doing this.
Yes.
There was. So the game shows you how to do it. But the thing about it is, and this is a question for everyone as well. When you place, so when you have the information sign, you can craft a sign, and you can place the item, just say a furnace, on the sign, and it prints it on there. And when you read the sign, it shows you what you can do with the machine.
Correct.
And then you can place the machine down, and you can use the machine, and you can still see what's on the sign.
Yeah.
But if you're an idiot like me and don't do that, I couldn't figure out a way to pick that back up and put it back on the sign. So I'd like lost my opportunity to put it on the sign. And I couldn't figure out a way to pick up the furnace. And in that same breath, I also couldn't find up a way to pick up the path tiles, the wooden path tiles that I tried to put on my farm. And so now I have half finished tiles all through one side of my farm that look really, really bad because I can't figure out a way to pick them up. I tried everything. I can't figure it out.
Pickup things, it's just holding the back or B button for me.
Okay.
And so like I was able to do in the tutorial quest, when you imprint like the furnace onto a sign or whatever, you can pick it up off the sign and then you can put something else on the sign, it seems. So like it looks like it looks like you can use the same sign each time, and just like keep putting different stuff on there when you need to. But
I mean, like
I never
when
really
you place
used
the
it.
furnace like down on the ground to use, and it's like they're ready to use.
Oh
on
yeah,
the ground,
you should be able
set
to.
up.
You can pick it up by holding like the back button or something on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to try that because I tried everything, and I looked in the controls, and I couldn't see anything there.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if I've tried holding B. I couldn't
Because
see
it's
holding
like
B as an
the
option.
quest I talked about earlier with Dog, where he's like, "Hey, there's something already pressed down here. Like the cup
Oh,
is here.
that's
You need to
right.
hold B, and then it picks it up."
That's right. Okay, so then this leads into the issue of I've done a quest that showed me a control. I've completely forgotten it.
Yep.
And then I
'Cause there's
didn't
too
have
many
a way
things.
to remind me.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the information to help me. So it's
We need a glossary.
just there are elements that are not very user friendly, and I have experience in these games. So I know I'm a little like not that smart, but like I do have a little bit of experience, so I feel like I should be able to pick up the controls, or at least be able to refer back to the controls and get it, or like troubleshoot it myself and understand it. But yeah, I struggled a little bit with that stuff, with the crafting and the I couldn't pick up my items.
yeah, exactly. And then even same thing, like I didn't realize how to upgrade my equipment until I walked into the blacksmith's place one day, and he finally told me, "Hey, if you want me to upgrade your equipment, you need to show you my equipment," because they always just say random things, and so like sometimes he just says something stupid. I'm just like, okay, I guess you don't do anything. So I leave. But then one day he was like, yeah, let me look at your stuff and I'll tell you how much. And then he told me how much it was. I was like, I don't have that much gold. I still haven't upgraded any of my items because it's like over 1,000 gold in order to do that. The first thing I'm gonna do is upgrade one of my pickaxes because I think
I did
getting
my pickaxe, and
yeah,
it hurt me to spend that much money.
yeah, because like and like there are some quests and things where it's like, oh, you need to spend money in order to make money. I'm like, well, okay, fine. I should have
I
spent
don't
money
wanna.
earlier. Yeah, but okay, cool. Did you have anything else, or was that pretty much?
Um, oh, just one more thing. Sorry. I found the access to everything in the crafting and just having so many items available to you and to buy and all the prices and everything being so high. I found that very, very overwhelming because it seems so far out of reach.
Mhm.
It might just be a personal thing because I know some people see things like that and find it very motivating to work towards, and seeing what the game has to offer is really enticing. For me personally, I prefer when a game limits access at least for a little bit, and dishes out things little by little in terms of recipes or quests and things, which this game does do. It gives you quests and things like that, but
Yeah.
you still have a broad access to everything in your crafting menu, and I find it confusing and overwhelming to have access to all that stuff at once. And it's hard to know how to get to that stage. I
Hmm.
think like
Yeah.
I need a little bit more hand holding personally, but it might just be
Same.
me.
No,
So
no,
it's
I feel the same.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and to jump off of what you two both said,
Mm,
that was my biggest thing was like, at least in Animal Crossing, it says, "Hey, you need this, this, and this to do it," right?
mm,
And you could always go back to the bench and say, "Okay, so I still need this, I still need this."
mm,
Here, and there was ways to do it. There was a lot of times where I was confused on what to do,
mm,
and so it wasn't very clear of like things. And so luckily, I would call Alex and be like, "Okay, so how did you do this or this or this?" And he would explain it to me. It does help you, but a lot of times I was thinking the dialogue would be something that would be unuseful. I would read it. They're just like you both said, there has to be a way to go back and read, like, oh, hey, here's this. There's always
mm,
a way to look and say, hey, this is the quest you're working on, right?
mm,
Here's your quest. Bam. To have something to say, oh, so here's some of the things that you were reading before, or a backup for that. Also, kind of like what you said, Brooke, as well, is there's just so many things in your between your inventory and like, oh, here's all your recipes. Bam, here's this, or here's this. There was just so much of it. It did seem a little bit overwhelming for me. And then when I finally did go into the shop, hey, I got new things to buy or these things to buy. Plus, you're doing everything else. It just seemed like it was a lot.
mm.
Um, and I know this game still has some time to update some things and to fix some things. So I'm not going to be very critical on my score what I give it. But if this was something for me of like, okay, so say you wanted to get into a cozy game, you saw this one there, and you wanted to try it out because you want to try something that wasn't like anything else. I think you would have a very hard time running into this and being like,
Mm.
"Oh, I'll figure this all out by myself." Um, and we
Sure.
got this game before it came out, so there's no real help. You just got
Well,
to figure it out
that's
yourself.
it. I was like, how do I move my furnace? Oh, I don't know. I guess these tiles are going to stay here forever.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we didn't really have help, but hopefully they either listen to these reviews and try to change some things, or maybe they already have these things in mind and they are updates. My
hmm
version from Switch, it did have an update when I first put in the code.
okay,
So like it did have something there to update it. Um Although who knows, that could have been something weird for some reason, but I'm pretty sure it did have an update for the game. But like yeah, I to go into the conclusion, since we are kind of running out of time. Um we This game is definitely good and it does things well. It could do things better. Um if you had a little bit more hand holdings in certain points, or once the game's out, there were certain guides to like show you how to do things. then I think this game would be really good for people. I think there is an issue with the ease of access, accessibility for like people are gonna find this game maybe too tedious or give up on it because they just don't understand things because the game expects them to understand things. I mean, granted, like Stardew Valley might be a game that's more um I don't know, explains things better, but maybe explains things too much, and maybe that's why I dropped it. Like I played it
Yeah.
for a little bit, and then I was
Maybe
like,
it was too slow.
yeah, that too. Like whereas like this game, like it focuses on more on story initially, and then it's like,
Mm,
okay, go have fun. And so the intrigue of the story for this game kind of made me want to play it. And then once I was kind of in it, then I was like, okay, now I'm starting to understand things. But I'm curious how many people will stick with it
Yeah.
compared to others.
mm.
Um, so I mean, I forget what's our review scores.
Uh, 5 being the absolute best, 4.5, or I'm sorry, 5, 4, yeah, 4.5, 4, and so on. So
Okay.
down the road.
Okay. Um so I depending on how the scores go or whatever, I'm somewhere between a 3.5 and a 4. I think that this game does what it does very well once you understand it.
Mm,
But because it is an, a harder experience for someone who's not used to these things, and again, like it just confuses you at certain points, it might be a little lower in like that 3.5 range. So like, it really depends on the day for me. I don't think it's bad. I will say that
Right.
right now. Like I think it is a good game. I think it's a pretty good game. I mean, yes, we got this for review, but I enjoyed this more than Stardew Valley initially, just because of just how it felt. But I mean, now that I'm playing this game, maybe I'll have different lens to look at these other farming sims because I'm just not used to farming sims.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's somewhere between then. Probably closer to a 4, I would say, just because of how well it does things and it kept my attention. And it's going to continue to keep my attention. This isn't a game that I'm just gonna, okay, we did a review, see ya. This is a
Yeah.
game where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm actually gonna spend time with this because I spent enough time with this. I like my pet Garfield. I want to hang out with him. I heard he hates Mondays. So like I wanna do these things. I want to build that rocket ship that the robot has. I built the first part of it. I want to see like what this stuff was in the trailer with this person with the mask. Like there's so much weird story stuff that is intriguing enough and Undertale-y enough, lack of a better term, that like I want to see what it has to offer. And just for our review time, just only being in summer, um, yeah, maybe winter is different. Maybe we get different things to find. Maybe the music is different. Maybe the story progresses. Like I just don't know, but I'm looking forward to it. Um, yeah, rambling. I like the game. 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I had very similar thoughts. I found the story pretty intriguing. There were things that the characters said that always made me like stop and, and reread it. Like, oh wait, what's that? That's like a little seed of
Yes.
oh something's not quite as it seems. This is beautiful cartoony sort of world, but like something's not quite right there. And it's it's sort of a long haul game, right? Like you already see it with the year one
Hmm.
summer, and so I know this game has a lot more to offer than what we've seen. So it's definitely something I would like to continue playing. It might be something that I continue playing once it releases full, or if it has a few updates, I might do a new save with what I've learned and start from the beginning. But it's not something I want to put down. But
Yeah.
it's just a matter of when I want to pick it up again if I want to continue. But I love my little bok choy, my little pet. So cute, and I really enjoyed playing it. And I had a really good time. It definitely was very cozy, and playing it came at a time where I really needed a cozy game to keep me distracted and give me a bit of happiness. So it definitely did the job there. So it did what it needed to do. So my rating is a 4 out of 5, a strong 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I think I'm agree with both of you. There was a couple little hiccups there that I didn't really like, and it made some things frustrating. But for the most part, I did enjoy it. I did have a good time with it, and it was something where, okay, so once I understood like this is how the game plays and this is how these work, these things, I got to pick up some things on my own, and so um, I have no problem with that. And I will probably play a little bit more of this. I definitely will. Uh, and so I'm getting into more of those type of games anyway. I think on the Switch this will be a great game. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5.
Look at that, so dramatic. Four
I
out of
know,
five.
right? I
Uh,
wish my old drama school teacher could see this now.
but yeah, thank you so much for joining us for this review. Before we go, I want to take a look. Does anyone know what the price of this game is? Because I don't know. Like, we're
I
recommending
don't
this
know.
game, but I'm just curious. Like, I don't know how much this game costs on Steam and Switch and all that. So I kind of
Might
want
have
to
a look.
look that up really quick.
Me too,
Um,
because I won't know. Whatever price you give me won't be in my currency, so I won't
exactly.
be able to.
So
Let me look it up too.
for US, it is 17.99 for Switch, which is an interesting price. That's not like a normal price. 17.99, a $20 game. I think this is worth $20 for sure.
Absolutely.
Honestly, I think they could get with charging more. Honestly,
where is it? Is it not going to show me?
Maybe not.
It's not showing me because I own it. What?
Okay, I had to just go to Google and then I looked up the Nintendo and it showed me what it was. But yeah, for a $20 game for a US price.
Yeah, it's about like $25 ish Australian. I think that's worth it for the game. Like it's
Yeah.
going to be it's a long game. It's not, you can put so many hours into games like Stardew Valley, and this seems like you can continue on as long as you want.
Mhm.
And like a day in these kinds of games is about what, like 20-30 minutes.
Yeah.
Depends on how you do
So
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lot of content.
Yeah, definitely. There I go saying that word again. But thank you so much, everyone.
It's your word of the day.
It's my favorite word. It's the word of the day. Pee Wee Herman. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us for this review. If you want to see a more bite-sized review of this, you can take a look at the video on YouTube. And we will also have a link to Brooke's YouTube channel in the description, as well as a link to the game on Steam. So if you wanted to purchase this game and you decided, hey, I like what people said about this game, we should go buy it. Go buy it. We recommend it. We think it's a 4 out of 5 game. We all said 4 out of 5. So yeah, definitely take a look at it. And we will see you next time. Goodbye.
See you later.